service right here. It just keeps going and. Well, it's been a long time since I've been able to use that. Welcome to Utah State Board of Education and Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind Governing Board meeting today. It's kind of like a special meeting. We're wanting to take care of some business so that July is we're trying to take that month off. This is not like a first for me, but it feels like a first. Welcome to a live meeting. It's exciting to sit here and see our board members, and instead of looking at them, trying to look at them through a screen. So welcome, and welcome the public and those that will be participating today. Safety-wise, before we get into our agenda, for emergencies and that, we can exit this door over here. As soon as you go out in the hall, either go right or left, and that's how you leave the building. So that's on the safety side. Restrooms are just right outside the doors, and just right here where this hallway is. We want to recognize and thank our state troopers for being here today. It handles our security, and hopefully it's not an eventful day and like normal here around here, but thank you for your service and thank you for being here. Before we get started here, we've handled the safety piece. If I'd like to invite you all to follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Normally in our electronic meetings we'd be having a roll call, but I don't believe it's necessary with the exception of.
This meeting is being recorded.
Board Member Straight has joined us online, and so we have everyone here and welcome. That's going to be refreshing not having to do that call out. Thank you. Want to excuse Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones from our meeting today. As many of you know, he's been deployed, and we're hope for his safety and safe return. Following our agenda, next we'll go into our employee recognition. Superintendent Dixon, you're going to cover that?
Thank you, Chair Huntsman. I'm really excited to introduce our Employee of the Month, and it's interesting to be here in person and do it. Normally, I would be standing in a podium and have my arm around the employee and brag, but this is kind of a product of doing it in two ways. But I want to introduce to you on the screen our amazing Employee of the Month, Tim Davis. Tim works in our IT department, and Tim has been an employee for a number of years here at the state board. And Tim is somebody who not only is so skilled in his job, but he is a learner. He's always trying to learn something new and upgrade his skills. And he was nominated for this because he took on the huge lift of Cactus. And if you know a lot about IT, then this may not make sense to you. But for those of us who don't know a lot about technology, especially in the programming space, you need an interpreter. And so Tim has this amazing ability to take the programming side of it and interpret for the user what it all means. And so he created a kind of a triage mechanism for those of us who are lay people who don't speak code language, and to be able to put that process in place so it really streamlined the programmers being able to get right at what the user needed. And this is just one example of how Tim goes out of his way to try and solve problems. The second big chunk of information I want to share about Tim is that he is really attentive to the culture. So he not only pays attention to his job, but he pays attention to the culture of this office. And he's always done that by participating on our Employee Action Committee, and just really knows the names of individuals around him in his own section, but also throughout the building. And he works very hard to make sure that he does his part to build a culture of positivity around him. So I'm very excited that we get to honor Tim. And now that we're back in the building, he actually has a parking space that has been restriped. It says reserved. There's a big sign, so nobody will mess with Tim Davis in his parking place now. So Tim, we're very proud of you. Thank you for your amazing work.
Thank you, Superintendent. And thank you, Board Chair Huntsman and board members. It's an honor and privilege to be selected. It's very humbling. I'm very grateful as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being on our USBE team. Thank you, Superintendent. Well, this next item is kind of a tough one for me. I'll try to make this happen. This is a recognition for our outgoing board secretary, but it's outstanding, awesome outgoing secretary. And so I'm going to try to read it, because I'm not, we've got a little couple things. I've got something to say, and then we've got some things to give her, and then we have another presentation, and just words aren't enough, and I'm afraid I'll leave something out. So if you'll bear with me as I try to read this, and there's sometimes my eyes start leaking. So if I get in trouble, I'm going to I'll hand this off. So here we go. It seems impossible to determine where to begin when it comes to the end of our professional time with someone as incredible as Lorraine Austin. Lorraine has been dedicated to the cause of education at the state board for 34 years. To say she will be missed is an understatement. However, her impact will be felt for decades to come. Her tenacity and zeal for her job have been the board's saving grace since the day she first walked through our doors. Lorraine's zest for her job, of course, comes as no surprise when you take the time to get to know this amazing human being. From her time as a BYU ballroom folk dance team member, a professional theater dancer touring Europe, to volunteering in the 1998 Nagano Japanese Winter Olympics, Lorraine wastes no time in seeing and living the fullest life possible. She keeps life full today by being dedicated to her family and her peers, including those who have been promoted to retirement status before her. She is a fiercely loyal family member and friend, and will feel nothing short of lucky to consider her forever a part of our family at USBE. In her short 34 years, Lorraine has supported 6 different superintendents, hosted the 1996 Council of Chief State School Officers Summer Institute program in Park City, supported every board member and the full board since 2011, and single-handedly has amassed the most extensive library of institutional knowledge for any agency in the state of Utah. She has done all of this while also being the true standard bearer of professionalism, kindness, and grace. Lorraine, as you take these next steps in life, may we take a moment to stand and empathetically express this gratitude we have that will never be enough to repay you for your dedication and service. We stand forever in debt to you, humbled by you, and bettered because of you. Thank you so much for all you have done, and we wish you nothing but happiness and joy. We know for someone like you, the best is yet to come. This is not a goodbye, but we'll see you later. Thank you for being the best part of this board. Thank you. Lorraine, will you please come up? Ooh. We have before you, this is famous. For those of it, I don't know if you use that to remind you of you, but, and then we have this bell that's ringing really loudly in my ear, also represents your service here, and also vice chairs, come over here.
You want me to go? Okay. Don't be peeking. And do you want to do your family? Or introduce your family?
Yeah, can we recognize family that have come to support
They
you?
just,
Please stand.
family and friends
They're
who
just
are,
gonna love this.
okay. Okay, introduce, she's getting a picture, so hold on. Okay.
Let me get closer
Will
to
you
my-
introduce?
Yes, I thank my family for coming. We have my sister Billy, my nephew Jason, my brother Trevor, my sister Terry, and her husband Craig. And thank you so much for coming and being here and all your support.
Thank you. Have a seat, right here,
Sit right here, Lorraine.
sit right here. Oop.
Today. Wants to, yeah, we're gonna do something first. and
Yeah,
then
there's
do
a-
the-
Yeah, I want to end.
But I want you to
Does he
stay
need
right
to
here. We're
play
going to
it?
play a video. No, I'm going to stand. Have a seat.
Confusion, man.
We have a video that we're going to play right now. Am I driving the video?
No.
I had to describe Lorraine in one word, it would be unflappable.
Courageously kind.
Savior.
Adventurous. The one word to describe Lorraine is patient.
Patient.
Candid. Amazing. Professional. Proactive.
Awesome smile.
Expertise. Historian. One word to describe Lorraine is definitely Wikipedia.
Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. We have a long history, as you know, since my dad hired you many, many years ago. And you were the first person, I think, that I met when I was elected to the state board. And you made me feel so welcome. You took care of everything for me. You did such an amazing job. You have made a huge impact on the state board and on the state. And so I just hope you have an amazing retirement, and thank you for all that you've done.
Just remember when I was new on the State Board of Education, how kind and patient Lorraine was with me and helping me understand the ropes and that kind of thing. And patience, I think, really is a virtue that Lorraine has demonstrated throughout her career. And I'm excited for your retirement, Lorraine, and wish you all the best of everything in these next few years.
We are really going to miss you, Lorraine. We so appreciate you keeping us on track. And we will just really miss you. Thank you for everything.
Hi, Lorraine. I remember one time that one of the things I love about you is that you were my cheerleader. And whenever I was having a bad day, I could come to you and you were patient, kind, and you would make me laugh. And I remember one day that I hadn't been on the board very long, and I was feeling very discouraged. And I came to you and said, I just felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything. And I remember something you said that stayed with me, and that was that you said, you're a policymaker now, and you're not probably going to see your accomplishments till 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. So you just keep going, and then someday you'll see the results. And that really helped me a lot, because whenever I got discouraged, I thought I didn't see the results I wanted, I remembered what you said. So I appreciate so much that you kept me going all those years. So thank you so much for all you've done for me. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, Lorraine, congratulations on your retirement. It's so well deserved. I just completely appreciated the opportunity of working with you. And the word that I came up with when I thought about you and my experience was patient. I so appreciated how this new deputy superintendent came in and how you walked me through with such great patience how to navigate various dates and deadlines, backup material for board meetings, and how accommodating you were of me and my learning curve. I sure appreciate it. And I would just say, Lorraine, I completely appreciated working with you, not only because you were patient with me, but just because you're an amazing individual who truly cares about the work and the people that are doing the work. And for that, you've set a great example for me and how I seek to emulate your example. So congratulations on your retirement. It's well deserved. Wish you the absolute best.
Lorraine, it has been such a pleasure working with you, and I am so excited for your new adventure. I hope that you have so much fun on all your travels, hanging out with friends, shopping, and most importantly, relaxing. You deserve it. You've had an amazing life at USBE. We are very much going to miss you, and we wish you well in your new adventure. Have fun.
I just want to wish Lorraine well in her retirement. When I started at the Utah State Board of Education about 10 years ago, I was so nervous to start with this group of ladies that just seemed to have it all together and so, professional. And when I started, Lorraine just took me right under her wing and has been there since day one and helped me a ton. And I just want her to know how much I appreciate that and how much I hope that she has a fabulous retirement and gets to do everything she's ever dreamed.
If I'm going to tell a story about Miss Lorraine, it's going to be the first day that I came to the State Board of Education. And I walked in and I looked at her and I go, wow, I should know her. And then she told me her name. And then I immediately knew that we were 7th grade class officers together when we were in junior high. It just took me a minute to remember that. And she's been so cute, and we've teased about that ever since and all the time I've been on the board.
Lorraine is somebody who I worked with for 20 years and has been a mentor and a friend and a colleague. I sincerely have this wish for your retirement. Please take me with you. One of the few people around that has the same history that I do with it, and even a deeper history than I do with the agency. We can longingly look back on those days when it was you and I left in the office at the end of board meeting. We were rushing not to be the last one out of the office, and it was still 6:30. That was great. I miss those days. I wish you all the best in retirement. I hope you can get back to ballroom dancing. I think that would be great, but whatever pleases you, you have fun. Thanks and bye.
Hey, Lorraine, I'm going to be so sad once you leave. We'll definitely miss you. And one of the things I'll miss most about you is the time that I used to pass you in the hall as I was leaving for the day. You remember we used to have our offices right next to each other. And even when you moved down the hall, I often walked by your office as I was leaving. And I loved those chats at the end of the day, the opportunity to hear about what's going on. You were great to keep me informed on things that were going on in the office that maybe I had missed or didn't know about. You always seemed to know what was going on, what was important. And plus I appreciated the personal part of the day as well, as we shared our trips or different things that were going on. So I will definitely miss seeing you as I walk out the building. You were often the last person I saw, but you deserve this. So excited for you on your retirement. So.
Hey, Lorraine, I am going to miss you dearly. I have learned so much from you over the years. I have learned how to correctly format a letter. I've learned how to be calm in the face of chaos. I've learned how to be professional. You are the consummate professional. I so appreciate your integrity, your humor, your willingness to always listen and then offer great suggestions to help us improve. You are a historian. I love how you always can trace back to how something happened or why it happened. And that's a skill set that we're really going to miss. But most of all, Lorraine, we're just going to miss you. You're a wonderful person, and you will surely be missed, not only for your professional skills, but just the friendship that you've given to all of us and to me personally. Thank you, Lorraine, for your service. Now go off and travel and have fun.
Miss Lorraine, I am so excited for your retirement and very, very sad at the same time. I remember, the one thing I remember about Lorraine more than anything is when I first started at the State Board of Education back in June of 2018, not too long ago, I was told I would have a specific office. That office was Lorraine's office. And she was waiting for her other office to get prepared. And so I got put in the office next to Lorraine's office until she could move out and I could move in. And I just remember like seeing her walk back and forth, and I cannot count how many times Lorraine came in and apologized for the office not being ready. And I was a brand new employee. I had an office, not a cubicle. So like I would take whatever office I got. But little did I know that once I followed her into her office and she went on to her own, that later on that I would be a fellow coworker with Lorraine with the board, and just following her around again. So I'm hoping, Lorraine, that this means my retirement is pending soon and that I'll be joining you on a beach somewhere and we can just be talking about the good old days of when we worked together at the board and how lucky we are to be sitting on the beach now instead. But I hope you have such a good retirement. You're not allowed to disappear completely. We live nearby each other, so I expect weekly lunches, at least semi-weekly, so that we can see each other often. You're so great and so fun, and I am so excited for your next chapter in life. Good luck.
Lorraine, I'm so excited for you and for your future adventures. All right, Boots, start walking.
Lorraine, I'm not sure if you remember or not, but when I was new about 6 years ago, I came on and did not know what my job was, and no one else really did either. So I got the opportunity to create my job, which is a really scary place to be. But I really felt like you were my personal coach and mentor. I know you were never assigned that role, nor did you volunteer for that role, but I knew that you were a safe place for me to go and be able to say, what is the difference between public comment and stakeholder feedback? What's the difference between information item and an item that I need to have consent on? What's the difference between, and not only would you like personally say, here, let me talk you through this, you created forms. And I don't know if you remember this, but I still have them. In fact, I was in my office yesterday and I was going through some papers, and there was one that you had created that says, here's the difference between this, and here's the difference between this and this. And I felt like you just did that especially for me. And I want you to know that I forward those on, and Jennifer Thronson was actually speaking to the document as well. And so all of that historical information that you gave so freely, and not only just by, here's what it is, you started to collect those thoughts and ideas and that historical and institutional knowledge in ways that will withstand the test of time. So I wanted to thank you for taking me under your wing. And even though you might not have chosen to do that, I felt like you personalized it just for me. And that speaks so highly of you and the character traits that you have. Well wishes on a happy and joyful and exciting retirement.
I don't know if congratulations are appropriate because it kind of reflects a milestone we never really wanted to pass, but I certainly commend you for hanging in there long enough to retire. I hope you'll find it's as gratifying and fulfilling as I have. Sometimes I wonder if I ever had time to go to work, and I hope you find the same situation. It was a joy working with you. You made me a better superintendent than I would have been otherwise. Thanks, and have a great retirement.
Lorraine, I am going to miss you so much. I remember when I first came over to admin, I was really intimidated by you. You were this person that you were the board secretary. So you knew everything and you knew everyone, and I was really intimidated. And I feel so blessed that I got a chance to get to know you and to learn from you and have you kind of just teach me different ways. You're this calming voice that talks about things that the rest of us don't think about as we're trying to process through things. And so I'm really going to miss the opportunities to be able to do that and to continue to learn from you. But I hope you enjoy your retirement and get to do all the fun traveling and see the things that you want to do and spend time with your family. And I wish you the very best of luck. But most of all, keep in touch.
Lorraine, thank you for your awesome smile. You can always see it through the phone. You can see it behind our pandemic face coverings. It's always there when I've needed it. Thank you for just being awesome. Your contribution to the State Board of Education cannot be measured. Your assists, your critical assists to the State Board of Education has brought many betterments to our great state of Utah students. Thank you for being awesome.
Well, is this on? Yeah. That was overwhelming and so kind. I'm seeing my family back there and I'm thinking, they're probably wondering who this person is. I'm not sure they would ever say I'm patient or any of those things, so I must have a different work persona, but I thank you so much for all the words. It's such a bittersweet time. I'm really excited to go on to a new phase of life and hopefully have just more time on my hands to do things I want to do and to have some new adventures. But there are so many things I will miss. I think I will just, first of all, miss the work. I like to work, and I've enjoyed the work. People tell me that won't last very long, but I know initially I really will just miss the work, and I've so much enjoyed being in the room where it happens, and I know I will miss that as well. I just feel really grateful to have had such a wonderful career here. First, working under 6 incredible superintendents, and then working with so many staff members, especially those in administration who are just such fine people, so talented, creative, such great leaders, and people who really care about children, but care about everybody. And I've just been so blessed to have worked with just so many incredible people. I have to talk about all the support staff I've worked with through the years. You know, every job has its ups and downs, and it's been so important and so wonderful to have people who would stand beside you and support you during the challenging times. and to laugh with you and rejoice in the good times, not only work times, but also personal times. And I just love you, and well, I can't say I'm going to miss you because we are going to go to lunch, so it's not the end for us. But I will miss the more daily interactions with you, and you've just been such an important part of my life. I appreciate everybody that I've rubbed shoulders with. Finally, to the board, I have to say I have always considered it a privilege to work for the board. To be able to preserve the history of your work, and it is such important work. I look around this table, and many of you I'm meeting in person for the first time. Half our board is new since January, and this is actually our first meeting in person, so hi and bye. Nice to meet you. But I am in awe of everyone who has sat in these seats. The public service that you do, it's an incredible thing. I just think of you even reading the agenda every month, and sometimes it's the equivalent of reading 5 or 6 books, and they're not really the good ones necessarily. So I appreciate all the work you do. You're incredible, and you do it in the service of children, and I can't think of anything better. And I'm just so grateful that I've had a little hand in that. And now I think we're over our time. And you know I hate for things to run behind. So I'm going to end things, but I'm going to do something that I've always wanted to do. So just beware, I'm going to ring this. So let the meeting commence.
Wow, it feels like our day should be finished. Good way to, a good way to start a day. Well, board members, and we have the public here. We're here to take care of some business. Today, so we'll dive right into our agenda. I sure appreciate all the work that people have gone through to prepare for this outstanding outgoing board secretary, Lorraine. Thank you for that work. Okay, we want to invite Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. The first item on that agenda is a budget update. So Finance Director Empey, are you going to be the driver on this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chairs, and board members. It's great to be here in person. The financial report that we're presenting today is for the first 11 months that ended May 31st. We are financially solvent. That's always two key words that I like to present. Our inflows and transfers from the state for the 11 months totaled $39.4 million. I'm just rounding up. Our expenses were $37.3 million, which gave us $2.1 million more in transfers and inflows than what we've spent. We anticipate quite a few expenditures as we close out the fiscal year, and we'll report those annual financial statements to you in our August board meeting. The number of students that we served was 2,456. Our balances in the land grant enrichment fund is $1.4 million. Our donated funds is $270,000, and our foundation fund is $1.2 million. The report behind the financial summary report is the budget status report that gives line item by line item of the detail of this numbers that I just summarized for you, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions for Director Empey on his report? This is odd. I'm so used to staring at a screen. Now I'm like, okay, we're seeing any lights going around, seeing none, seeing none. Now I have to, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, the next report is the Enrichment Funds to talk about the total, the projects that you and our advisory council approved for the fiscal year totaled $1.6 million. We've spent so far only, I've got to just look at this here, $633,000. The corona pandemic obviously has impacted a lot what we were able to do for our kids for the extracurricular events. We are having summer camps right now and incurring those expenses. And the kids just came back from the 70-48 boat race, in which the superintendent will talk about that. So we'll see those expenses increase as we close out the books for the fiscal year.
Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, thank you.
And that concludes my financial report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next, we'll have from Superintendent Coleman, and I'm sure you've got distinguished guests to assist you with this, your year-end wrap-up, graduation. So we'll turn the time over to Superintendent.
Thank you. This next item will be led by the two associate superintendents. On your left is Susan Patton, who's the superintendent for the School of the Blind, and on the right is Michelle Tanner, the superintendent of the School for the Deaf. And they have prepared a presentation for the year-end report.
We're excited to be here. We'll try and be short and brief as much as we can. So we're going to overview, as a general overview, I'm going to start with the School for the Deaf, the things that we've been able to accomplish this past year. One of the things that's really important is we were in session the whole time. We actually didn't have to close down completely. We had some classes that we had to quarantine. And so that happened about 5 or 6 times. We also, this year, were able still to create some brand new deaf and hard of hearing online courses. So we have lots of online courses that sometimes hard for our students to access because they're not in sign language or not captioned in different points. So we've been creating courses, and I'll talk about that later. We also engaged in some what we call Deaf Hope, where the high school students come together, deaf and hard of hearing high school students from across the state get together and do some activities that are very unique to their social emotional experiences as a deaf and hard of hearing student that really impact them in the high school age. And so we had some really fun activities. We also have a counselor there with them. So as they delve into topics that may be difficult for them to process as a group, they're there to guide them. So that we had a few of those. We also hosted the first National Deaf High School Theater Competition. Theater competitions happen all over the place for hearing kids. It just never happens for deaf kids. And so this is actually the first time ever that there is ever was hosted, and we planned on doing it in person. COVID hit, but we did it online, and it was a great success. We're going to do it again next year. We had some professional actors that are deaf come in, present virtually, and next year hopefully we'll have them in person. They were super excited. They want to help host next year. Of course, we also did the 50 of our 70 miles from the 70-48. We did that as a team, so that's both of us. And we were quite proud of them. When it was 90 degrees here, it was 54 and felt like negative 54. I remember
very
the jacket.
rainy. And very rainy.
And, oh, Joel forgot his jacket. But the rest of us were not going to make them. I told Joel I threatened a parka. And I almost did. But it was great. They were so good. The kids were fantastic. I remember we had told Susan to stay back with the big truck so that because we had one student that said he wanted to get out. He said he wanted to get out. So Joel and I got in a we got there because we thought if we brought a van, they're all going to go, oh yeah, I'm so getting out. We got there. It was funny. The one kid stopped with Joel and I said, hey, maybe you can just keep going, keep doing it. We didn't know that a conversation was happening off to the side that had determined this was probably as good as we could get because it's 6-foot waves out in the middle of the bay, and that was going to swamp our boat. We didn't know that. But we were talking, it was so funny to watch that student sit there. I am not psychologically, emotionally, or spiritually able to continue on. Joel and I both backed off. We get you. We're out. We'll take you. But then we found out it was time. It was time. It was a great race. We're really proud of them. And I think they're going to come present at some point next year when they're back. In our parent infant program, these are the babies 0 to 3 that we have. We still, I mean, I could have listed a whole bunch of accomplishments here, but we did a lot of services through teleintervention, and the parents really thrive with that, because instead of me handing over and taking over and doing for them, the parent has to do it. So you have to tell them through the camera, you'll need to do this, this, and this instead of, and they had to step it up. It was a really great thing. We also completed an audit through Baby Watch, through the health department as we collaborate them for 0 to 3. The Elizabeth DeLong School, that's in Springville. That's the one that opened up, I think, at the very tail end of COVID. We're opening the school up. And so this is their first full year of operation. And we had lots of hands-on, we have mostly up to 2nd grade at that point. But now we're adding up an expansion. We're going to have classes up to 4th grade next year. So we're getting excited for that. It's a beautiful building. I hope you get to see it sometime. Yeah. I have about 50 students there. 50 students. Last year was up to, we had a 1 3rd grader. I don't know what just happened. It just died.
Board Member Cannon, I need you to turn your mic on. So when you have a question, well, no, this is this mic. Leave that one muted. So then I'll call on you when if you guys have a question, so that the people that are online can hear you. So you had a question?
My question was, how many students are being served at the Springville Center?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just telling you, there's about 50 kids. We had mostly up to 2nd grade, and we're just expanding that. They are coming out of the woodwork, the children are, just to see it and spend time with other children like themselves. I'm going to keep going on, even though technology is coming down right now. At JMS, again, we had a few times we had to quarantine at JMS. They did a lot of virtual experiences with Gallaudet, RIT, other universities across the nation and other schools. And the other thing that was important to let you know is we've had 2 directors in there. We've had Amy Breinholt and Nathan Harrison. Both of them are going to be doing different positions next year. Amy has decided she would much rather teach. It's a stressful job being a principal, and she said she'd much rather teach. So she's going to go teaching, and Nathan is going to be in our curriculum director position. So we're having 2 new people coming next year. They're both deaf. That will be Rachel Benedict and Jonathan Higgelson. They will both be our director and assistant director. Next, we had our Kenneth Burdette School. That is in Ogden, at our Ogden campus. That's been the longest campus that we've had. And in that camp, they are very proud because the scores for the children have just exceeded expectations, and they're just going through the roof. I can't wait to show that to you when we do our annual report. And they've engaged in a lot of collaboratives with other universities as well, what they've listed here. Martin Price is the director there. Our listening and spoken language program, that's for those of you who don't know, those are the students that they use hearing aids and they use speech or they use cochlear implants. And we have a high emphasis on technology there. We've done a lot of virtual parent classes, use the web. It's been great, and we've been engaging the parents that way. These are the classes that we've been offered. We offered 17 online classes in our USD online program. And we've increased our technology for the outreach. We've done a lot of things with, we use a tool called GoReact as well, plus we have things online. And we are increasing this even more, which I'll speak to.
Michelle, I need to interrupt here. I got a message from a friend who was just hired by the American School for the Deaf from Georgia, Stacy Shapiro.
Mm-hmm.
She's been hired by them to create the first online deaf school in the country, and I got on and corrected them immediately and said, oh, no.
We've been doing this.
Utah has it. We have 17 full courses online, and we're moving ahead, so they know.
I'm good. I'm glad. And also, Adam is the one that was the captain on the boat, along with Ryan, who helped with the 7048. Adam is a captain. He's at sea right now. Just as a way forward is that we are doing, they said we're doing 28 summer camps right now, preschool through high school. We've got them involved. They're going to Moab. Some of the kids were doing basketball. We've got literacy camps, lots of things. It's a myriad of different activities using the talents of our staff. And we're also working on the project. We are creating online content for elementary. So that should be finished at the end of August for deaf students to take online content. That would be a rural student who maybe needs to take a course with other kids that are deaf and hard of hearing, and in the different subject matters. We're working really hard on that. Deaf Town, that's where we go to the junior achievement, and we take over the city, and it's all deaf run by deaf people. and we invite other deaf schools to engage with that. That's happening in October. We're going to expand the deaf theater competition. We're going to have some weekly trainings from the professionals in deaf theater to train with them, and all culminating in an event on February 22nd. We're crossing our fingers we actually get to take our international trip this year. We had originally scheduled to India. We're not sure we're going to India. I'm getting a little worried about India right now. It's getting scary, but we'll see. We've got some backup plans if we don't end up going to India. And we have a myriad of different after-school activities that are happening. They're going to happen in-state and out-of-state. We're going to go to the Capitol and visit in the Capitol. We're going to visit other different states to see what they're doing. We're going to do some more practicing for our 7048. We're going to get ready for that. And the big thing that's happening in April, this one's the one that's the most work. We are going to be hosting the Conference of Educational Administrators for Schools for the Deaf across the nation. We haven't hosted that in a very long time. It's an intensive event. All the superintendents from across the nation are coming in, and of course, they haven't met for over a year and a half, and so we get to be the host here, and we're excited to do it. I'm going to turn it over to Susan.
Okay, well, I have to say I'm happy to be here in person because I have not been here in person. I was hired, the start date was July 1st of last year. So that was the big thing for me, was just finishing this year. And it was a very different year. So I know that it was a very different year. But we did accomplish a lot. And I was very proud of our administration, our directors, and our teachers, and especially our students. So again, like Michelle said, we were able to maintain in-person classes throughout the school year. We did have some classes that went on quarantine at certain times, but they were able to come back, and then another class might go out in quarantine. One of the things that was so interesting was that the parents were so very cooperative and very supportive of we did not have one parent complain as far as if we had to send a class home or whatnot. We worried about, work schedules and whatnot, but we had very much a lot of support from our parents. We held virtual parent conference. We did not cancel any of our conferences. We held them virtually for both deaf-blind, our parent-infant program, and our outreach divisions. We also held our virtual extended core curriculum activities, which are very intense, and they're usually in person once a month, short-term programs where they're several camps. And we actually were able to expand that outside of the state of Utah. So we were able to have blind visually impaired kids participate throughout the nation, which was great. We did something new this year where we went to Luminaria. We actually went 2 days before New Year's Day, and we established a partnership with Thanksgiving Point that is going to be really, really reciprocal in the upcoming years, where they're really wanting to participate with the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind to help us participate in activities, and they were so accommodating. And one of the great things was they were wanting to learn about our students and about our parents and families. They just were so accommodating. So that was really fun. We had incorporated ion technology, and that's a piece of technology that will facilitate communication through eye gaze and through very little head movement for our kids with multiple disabilities. I'm more than happy to send you information on that if you would like more information. It's pretty incredible. We held online academies throughout the state and also nationwide, training on assistive technology for kids who are blind and visually impaired for different teachers of the visually impaired. We also had a college transition online academy. And then we had quality professional development. And what was so great about the professional development was that that more people could attend, which I think we really experienced that across the board. And we were able to develop the Insight, which is an early intervention assessment that we were able to digitize so that we can do that in a more effective format. And then, of course, our 7048. So our parent-infant program, Karen Borg is the director. She mentioned, I asked them all, Michelle and I asked all the directors to come up with 3 things that were highlights of the school year for them. She said innovative communication, that they really worked on how are we going to communicate when we don't have in-person meetings and whatnot. So they developed a dashboard where they had everything at their fingertips. They also did activity boxes, and they did activity boxes every quarter, so it really went through every season, where they sent those activity boxes home to families that had strategies for blind visually impaired kids. They had they had storybooks. There was just a lot of different interactive things for the parents to do. And we got some really great feedback on that. And we're actually going to continue to do those. And then the regional activities, and those were held in person towards the end of spring, where we were monitoring the size of the group, but we also did them in a virtual format. And the thing that was so great there is the parents were able to meet one another and connect on a regular basis, and wasn't just a once a year activity.
Are these your PIP advisors?
Yes, the PIP advisors were the one that did that.
Anna and Elsa, we got some great PIP advisors.
Yes. Do you like that? Yes. Okay, and this is our campus program. Michelle mentioned Ryan Green. He was one that headed up the 7048, so he's tired, very tired. And then our assistant director there is Lauren Rich. The School for the Blind, we do have 3 campuses, but we are all just under one program, instead of like the School for the Deaf has 3 campuses that are different schools. The thing that Ryan mentioned was the flexibility of our teaching staff to go online with the drop of a hat or the snap of a fingers, just like that. And then resiliency of our students. We really anticipated seeing some drop in progress, and we did not see that. We didn't see as much as we thought we would. And then this year we had 3 graduates, and that might not sound like very many, but for the School for the Blind, we had 2 of the 3 that received regular diplomas. And that's pretty neat for us, that they were not certificate of completion or alternative diplomas. So we're very proud of that. Our blind school, our outreach division, Brandon Watts, who also attended the 7048. His highlights were the collaboration with the U of U Reading Clinic, and that's where we send teachers of the visually impaired through the U of U Reading Clinic to expand their literacy skills in teaching Braille and large print and different strategies. Again, the online methods of instruction. And then one thing that was extremely successful this year was the College Career Fair and Parent Conference. Because it was a virtual format, we had more participants than we've ever had, and that is going to help our transition rate to college. Deafblind Services, we had our statewide conference. One of the things that they did that's different this year was they had expanded core curriculum virtual meetings for paraeducators and for our interveners. And we have found that our paraeducators and our interveners, that's where we're lacking as far as the knowledge in expanded core curriculum. And as we all know, paraeducators and interveners they're where the rubber hits the road as far as instruction is concerned. They're not directing the education, but they are facilitating that. And then they also participated on a nationwide kind of a story time where these Marvin's Midwest Adventures. And this is a little girl, her name is Lucy, and that's Marvin that she's holding. Lucy has never had an interactive experience with, she rarely has interactive experiences with people because of her deaf blindness, but she has never taken to a toy. And this toy, Marvin, she won't let go of. And so the parents said how grateful they were because they finally saw some age-appropriate, she's a preschooler, some age-appropriate interactive play with this doll. And they felt like, on an emotional level, that was such a big stride for Lucy. Our expanded core curriculum, we had prom. We had prom outside. We did a tent. The theme was a whole new world, and it was a Middle Eastern / India theme. We had a camel and a donkey, and the kids, it was amazing, and they were really happy. We all actually dressed up in clothes that were from India, and it was really fun. The digital learning opportunities, which I talked about, which we will continue to do those, and then of course Luminaria. So looking ahead for the School for the Blind, one of the things we're doing this next year, which we're somewhat nervous about and then so excited about too, because I just have a great feeling about it. All of our campus classrooms will participate in a co-teaching model, integrating the core curriculum with the expanded core curriculum. And if you can think of it as a language immersion program where it's infused into every class, that's what the expanded core curriculum is going to be. That's what this model is going to be. I feel very strongly that our expanded core curriculum needs to be infused into every single class for the School for the Blind. That's what sets us apart from other schools and other school districts. So we have different, we have a math teacher, and then we have an expanded core curriculum teacher that are infusing that real life experience into what we're teaching with the core curriculum. And again, I can send you more information if you have questions on that. It's been a while in developing it, but we are excited about it. The professional development in adult transition. We found that we are lacking in making sure that our kids are transitioning in a productive way, our blind and visually impaired students. So we are partnering with Perkins School for the Blind and also the American Printing House, APH, for the blind, and we have developed cohorts that our teachers will be required to go through. These are not just School for the Blind teachers, but also teachers, TVIs from the 3% districts. So this will be offered to them as well, because they know that that's a big hole where they're concerned as well. So, and then we hired a transition specialist this year that's going to help with this professional development and also just bridging those gaps, trying to bridge those gaps in our transition programs. We also have the study abroad trip. 2 years ago, it was planned for, well, I guess last year, Scandinavia, which is still the plan, but we are looking at some other things. Our problem is we have to look at what's been purchased and what we are tied into if we have to go to Scandinavia. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. That sounded terrible, like if we have to go to Scandinavia. Anyway, so we're excited about that. But all in all, I think that with this school year being what it was, it actually exposed some holes where we knew we needed to fix, where we needed to have better communication with our parents. We needed to provide those opportunities. We needed to have better transition programs and better, so I think all in all though, the things that were exposed, we're fixing. We have some good plan for ahead. Does anybody have any questions for me? I feel like I talked really fast, but.
Questions from board members?
We appreciate it.
I'm not seeing any. Superintendent, do you have anything to sum it up?
Just a real short comment. You can see why when I talk to you about our programs, I have so much confidence and just actually pure joy on some days because of the high quality of the leadership and those we have working for us. I will say this, you already know Superintendent Tanner pretty well over the years, those of you who have been here on the board, but having Susan at the helm of the blind school has been refreshing. She's not afraid to take a very candid, honest look about and you heard that in her report, where the gaps are. She's not afraid to face them and to take, and some of the adjustments that she has made by infusing the expanded core and the traditional academic core together, among other some organizational shifts using the existing resources. It's just been awesome, and I can already see that they're going to have higher levels of success just because of that. So I'm glad you finally got to meet Susan in person.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, superintendents. The passion's certainly there, and it's a little different in person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, question. Hang on, sorry, I didn't.
It's not a question.
I gotta get this vision working just right before I sum it up. Vice Chair Davis.
It's not really a question. I just wanted to say that I went out to the rowing launch at Utah Lake, and I thought I was going to go to take a few pictures and cheer for the rowers from the side of the shore, and they pulled over and said, "Get in," and I got in, and they let my 11-year-old son get in, and we rode, and I think Katy Perry was playing in this taped up speaker, and anyway, it was a really sweet experience. So thank you for all that you do for students and for letting me have a taste that day of it.
They're great kids. The one who wanted to stick to the very end has the most, no vision at all. He was the biggest trooper. I mean, you can't imagine, he's completely, totally blind. Yeah. I told him he's my hero because I don't know that I'd have that kind of courage, but he sure did. And he stuck it out. So proud of him. Isaiah's a good kid.
Well, it speaks to the trust that our students and the parents have in you and your staff and the whole organization. So thank you for an awesome year, and we're looking forward to what next year's going to bring. So thanks again for your report. Next, we'll move on to the superintendent's update. Superintendent?
Thank you. It's really great to be here with you, each of you. Some of you to see you with my own eyes the first time, and it's great. So, couple of quick things. Follow up from our last meeting when we requested permission to go over the $100,000 threshold with sort of a preemptive approval from you. Those projects came in. Only one of them ended up being over that threshold, and that was the remodel on the gym at our JMS school here. They will have it completed by the time school starts, so that's good. Came out at $142,000. No, I'm sorry. The best bid was $137,000. The portable move to St. George ended up being below that threshold, and it came in at $82,000. So pretty good price for a new building in a new city, I think, and that'll get us going. So that's my follow-up to that item, and we appreciate you giving us the go-ahead on that. Next item real quick, we're still working on teacher licensing. I'm going to report on this every single month because Malia has been really good at supporting us and helping us. The staff's doing a great job. And licensing, I think very few people understand how complex it is at USDB. I think we have every single license the board offers in some way or another. And so working through that, and we are learning about more than we ever knew before about licensing, and they are learning more about us. And so I wanted to thank them in front of the board for their support, the staff members, Malia in particular, and all of her team. You heard about the 7048. We will bring some students and individuals, because it's summer now, we couldn't get them together. So in a future meeting, we'll bring them back and you can hear from them a little bit. And then we'll take a moratorium on that until next year. It's just such a fun thing to revisit. But I will tell you this, Susan Thomas, our communications director, informed us that we had over 3.4 million views on some story or another about USDB in that race at a value of $320,000 of earned media. So that's really great too in itself, just to show people that children who are deaf and who are blind and adults. We had two teachers with us who were also blind, and I mean, you don't realize they can do anything. They might not be able to hear or see, but they can do anything else, and so that's really fantastic. And then one item I just thought I'd bring up to you, if you're willing. We were thinking about maybe considering a bylaw change to the advisory council bylaws. In the event we cannot fill one of the required positions, and there is someone who's willing to continue to serve after their terms have expired, if maybe the board would entertain reappointing them. We have that from time to time, every several years. It's not very often. We have the situation right now. We've got a great person who's willing to serve again, and we've advertised, and we can't get someone to fill that particular position of a person who represents the LSL community as an adult. And so, anyway, for what it's worth, I was interested in your feedback on that, if you'd be maybe willing to give someone a fourth term, even though they only get 3 terms in the bylaws. And I don't know what you think about that, but it's better than having it go empty.
Yeah, and I think where we're at on that is we probably need to bring it back in August.
Okay.
And act officially in that.
We'll put that agenda. So maybe that's just more of a heads up that we'll put it out there. And we have had years where we've just gone with an empty seat for years. And so we'd like to avoid that if we have a good, willing person. And that's my report this month.
Questions or comments for the superintendent from board members? Or rotate my head instead of just staring at my screen here. Seeing none, thank you, Superintendent. I'll follow up on that particular potential item. Okay, next board members, I'm going to bring your attention to the general consent calendar. There has been an update to Civic Clerk on a text on a title within the agreement that's been corrected. But outside of that, nothing changed. So at this moment is a time where board members can ask to have something removed from the consent calendar. Not seeing any lights on. Vice Chair Davis.
I move that we approve the general consent calendar.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. The motion before the board is that the board approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Member Straight, if you're with us, can you vote? Not seeing a hand raised. He's with us. Oh, there it is. Okay. Voting is unanimous. Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we want to invite Deputy Superintendent Angie Stallings to come up.
Thank you, Chair. It was on. Thank
Okay,
you.
you controlling the screen or?
I'm not, Jeff is.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Chair Huntsman and board members. It's so good to be here in person with you today. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. We've got two policy requests for your review and consideration. For the first one is regarding the Dropout Prevention and Recovery Program, which was enacted in approximately 2015. It's a program that requires LEAs to establish dropout prevention programs and create plans, which most LEAs were doing prior to the legislation being passed, so it essentially codifies existing practice. But the one thing that the program does that we've received feedback on that would be good to repeal or allow to sunset, if it had a sunset, it doesn't. So this isn't a sunset review. This would actually be requesting the legislature to repeal this program, is it requires LEAs to contract with a third-party provider if they have a graduation rate below the statewide average and they haven't made at least 1% increase in their graduation rate over the prior year. This program has no funding attached to it, so LEAs have had that requirement to contract with a third-party provider without having any funding to support those contracts. And so, and the other issue is generally most LEAs don't really understand the program. It hasn't provided the outcomes that I think the the legislature intended. So staff are requesting the support of the board to work with a legislator to open a bill file to repeal that program. That's the first one. Would you like me to just do the second one as well? Okay. And then the second one is current. It's really a request to open a bill file on turnaround in general. We do have one portion that we know specifically to have some changes in 53E5308. But in general, staff are looking to align the state turnaround program more with the federal school improvement program so that we don't have competing issues, but instead complementary programs. And you may remember this last session, there was a bill, it was Senator Reeby's accountability bill, and at the end there was a request for the board to be able to use some funds to really take a look at the school turnaround program and do exactly this. So we wanted to get a bill file open now because we learned from last year's experience with the new prioritization process that legislators have, that if you don't get your bill files opened early or get them prioritized, they may not get drafted in time. So although we don't have all the details of what we'd be looking at, we will come back to you with details as we have recommendations for changes to the school turnaround program. And of course, you will also have the opportunity for whenever we have a bill file that ends up being numbered, that will be reviewed by the board. So those are the two requests we have today for us to be able to go and seek legislators who would work with us on these two bills.
Discussion, questions? Board Member Cannon?
Thank you. This regarding the turnaround bill, I just would like to say yay, because going over the turnaround schools for the last several years and trying to figure out what a low-performing school is by the federal definition and a low-performing school by the state definition and what percentage this is and what percentage that is very confusing to me, and I feel for those people who are trying to perform under those guidelines. So just want to say thank you for doing that, and however complimentary we can be, I think that'd just be wonderful. So glad to see this.
Well, we don't have a motion on the table, so we haven't done anything yet, but we're getting maybe close. Vice Chair Belknap.
Angie, on the first one, are we looking for a total repeal or just that portion?
The staff recommendation was for a total repeal, but if you look at the program, and I will tell you another side benefit of repealing the entire program is it currently has an annual reporting requirement that's included in the superintendent's annual reporting requirement. And so currently our staff are recommending that the whole section be repealed, but we'd be open to feedback.
Did you have a follow-up?
I was just going to make a motion, but.
Well, let's hang on.
Scott
That's
has.
Board Member Hanson?
Just a general question on that dropout prevention. How big is the problem? How many kids are we seeing, slide out of the system? Do we know what that looks like?
That's a great question, and I wonder if either Leah Voorhees or Clarissa Stebbing, I noticed them on earlier. Clarissa is one of the specialists, and Leah Voorhees is the assistant superintendent over this program. If either of them could maybe answer the question.
Director Voorhees, looks like she's going to comment on this. Can you comment on Board Member Hanson's question? Leah?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I actually don't know how many students we were talking about. If Clarissa is on, she may be able to answer the student question, but I'd be happy to grab that really quick and send you that information, but I don't know the student count.
This is Clarissa Stebbing, Prevention Specialist, and I don't have the student count. I do know that currently there are 16 LEAs affected by this particular requirement that they must contract with a third-party provider this next school year. But I don't know the exact number of students that would affect.
Okay, do you have a follow-up, Board Member Hanson?
Just maybe we could get some follow-up data, I guess, on that. If you could just send us an email and let us know, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. We'll honor that request. We'll get some additional information as a follow-up. Vice Chair Davis?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on the turnaround one. I know in the last couple of years, we were really kind of discussing the pros and cons of making our turnaround a little more similar to the federal guidelines, and ours was to exit, I think, over 3%, and theirs was over 15% or something. We talked about pros and cons. Do we know, is this kind of something that we're looking toward exploring again? And do we know the financial impacts of that, like what the costs of that would be? And have we studied past data to see the ramifications, like what percentage of schools that would impact and whatnot?
Chair, and again, maybe Leah Voorhees or Tracy Van Deventer might want to answer, or Max Lang. Anyone?
Director Voorhees, can you answer that question, or should we redirect the question to someone else?
Chair, I could start to answer. Max might be able to provide more information, but we did do some, a couple of years ago now, it's probably been, maybe a year and a half, we did do some modeling, and our data and statistics friends and also WestEd helped us with some modeling to look at how many schools we would be talking about if we matched those percentages, like Vice Chair Davis has brought up. We didn't actually get into the funding of what it would look like. We got into looking at the number of schools that would be in, that would be out, how many would be in at a specific time. And currently we're sending about $80,000 a year to each of those schools for the 3 years. And if they meet certain criteria, an extra $10,000 a year. So depending on what that percentage was, we would be multiplying that number by that about $300,000 for the 3 years. And if Max has anything to add to that, it may be helpful.
Max Lane, do you have anything to add?
No, Chair, I think Assistant Superintendent Voorhees covered that pretty well.
That's good to see you. Thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Vice Chair Davis? Okay. I'll remind the board, Board Member Lear.
My question or my comment, do I have to push something else now?
No, you're good.
I'm good. is just more of a cautionary comment, and I've never been a fan of several of the provisions in turnaround, not at the beginning, not as it played out. But I just am concerned if we go forward opening up the whole bill, could it get worse? And I would hate to see that happen. And by worse, I mean, I'm all in favor of helping schools that need help, but some of the ways that were outlined to do that, I'm not sure were as helpful as they were complicated. So I just hope we can guard against making it more complicated, more tortured, and more simply helpful to schools.
Superintendent Dixon?
Thank you, Chair Huntsman. I really appreciate Board Member Lear's comment, and I think you're right that it is a cautionary tale, but I also am really appreciative of the work that the board has done up to this point in standards and assessment. I think you've had some great conversations about the idea of a school improvement center. We were able to hire Tracy to lead that work, and I think that we're on a pathway to really rethink how we support schools who are struggling. So this is also a good opportunity, not a great opportunity, it's maybe a great opportunity for the board to lead out and lean forward with a different plan and a different way of thinking about it. I think we've been having some productive conversations on the Hill over the last couple of years to set that stage. So I think it's an opportunity to capitalize on the work that's been done by this board and move forward.
Vice Chair Belknap?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the board directs staff to work with legislators on potential amendments to Utah Code as proposed by Angie. I guess that's not part of my motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Board Member Cannon, do we have a motion? Do you want to speak to your motion?
No.
Okay. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, the motion before the board is that the board directs staff to work with legislators on potential amendments to Utah Code as proposed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Board Member Straight, are you still with us? Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're preparing, we sure appreciate everyone's ability to adjust their schedule to have this board meeting, and because there's some items that are on committees that time is of the essence, and so the timing's worked out really good. But so thank you for your work there. I'm going to turn the time over to Vice Chair Belknap, who's going to lead us through the committee reports.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I can just do it from here. Vice Chair James Moss, would you like to do the finance, please?
Will do. We've got 4 action items that came out of the June 4th meeting. First is the charter school revolving loan. This relates to Wasatch Waldorf. The committee moves that the board approve a revolving loan for Wasatch Waldorf Charter School in the amount of $107,826.
So the motion before the board is that the board move that, okay, I got to move this up. The committee moves that the board approve the revolving loan for the Wasatch Waldorf Charter School in the amount of $107,826. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Board Member Straight? Board Member Straight? Aye.
Thank you. It was an aye. Go ahead.
Second, coaching R277-605. The committee moves that the board approve R277-605, coaching standards in athletic clinics, draft 1 on second and final reading.
So the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve our 277-605, coaching standards and athletic clinics, draft 1 on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Board Member Lear.
I had several questions. Can I direct them to the chair of the committee, or maybe there's somebody else?
Maybe just put them on the table and then he can decide if it's better for him.
That is perfect.
Thank you.
First of all, I wondered if there had been any, I read in the background that some LEAs brought this to our attention, but I wondered if there were accidents or situations that had prompted this, the changes.
Do you have that, Jim, or do you want to go to someone else?
We could
Ben,
go
will
to-
you come up?
We go to Ben, yeah. We did
Thank you.
discuss a couple items, but not that one.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moss. Okay, Ben?
Thank you, Chair. Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Jody Parker, the PE specialist, circulated the rule to several LEAs. 2 school districts brought up the issues that we added to the rule. Davis School District brought up the issue with bullying, and Granite School District brought up the issue with the after clinic issues, after hours issues.
Go ahead, Carol.
Helpful, yeah, I had
Okay.
another question,
Thank
and
you.
again, I'm not sure who to direct this to exactly, but there, on lines 23, I can see the changes. School leaders, coaches are responsible for students as long as students remain on school grounds following a school-sponsored activity consistent with the LEA policy. I'm just hoping that also means if they're at away activities, if they're not on school grounds, that I wonder if this is broad enough to clarify that coaches, if they're on some school grounds, I guess we can assume that the coaches and appropriate people are responsible, but if they're at an activity at a baseball field someplace, does this cover as broadly as we need it to?
Ben?
You raised that question, member Lear, in an email earlier, and when I looked in the rule, I thought there was another part of the rule that covered that. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but.
Let's hold on just a minute. Angie, do you know if that's there? And whose mic's on? Oh, okay.
So if you look on line 17, coaches shall diligently supervise student athletes at all times while in school-sponsored activities. And then it goes on to give specifics.
So you just think that covers the other activities in other places? Is that what you're saying?
On the field, court, or other competition or performance sites are specified.
Okay. Okay, I guess I can live with that. I just had one final question.
Okay, if you'll just hold 1 minute, Carol, is that okay? Brent, will you turn your mic off? Okay, all right, go ahead.
And I wondered, because this also talks at the very end of the rule about, actually not the very end, line 38 talks about required training on bullying, cyberbullying, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any auditing of this or monitoring of this? Or I really cringe at putting things in rules that we have no way to know if this is happening. And yet I also understand burdening LAs with additional reporting requirements. So I'm concerned. This is an area where there are a lot of problems. I deal with them in my work. I saw them with my own children, my own grandchildren. So if there's no auditing, or what's the point?
Carol, is this, this could go for anybody. Is this not in the UHSAA that they are required, every coach, every trainer, every person to be trained in this bullying?
I think that's true, but
And then they have to go into, what is it?
Register my athlete.
coach. And they
Register
have
my
a
athlete.
register my coach now, that they have to guarantee that, and the athletic director is now responsible if they've marked that.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
If that is, I know there's some UHSAA requirements to that.
That is what they have now, is
But-
that it's register my coach, and they have to have a checklist, and then the athletic director is responsible for those who have checked that off, that happened.
So do we know if anybody ever checks the LEAs checking off their
Checking off their
their
lists?
multiple coaches, or says, wait a minute, there's 17 high school coaches out there at a Skyline football game? Are all of those? I just
don't know.
wondered if there's any
Angie, do you have
monitoring.
another answer?
I don't personally know the answer to that, but I was wondering if maybe Assistant Superintendent Voorhees or our staff who oversee the bullying prevention program might have an idea if any of that's monitored.
It looks like Max, do you have Max came on before you, Leah. Okay, maybe it's not Max. Go ahead. Leah?
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent of Student Support, Leah Voorhees. I don't actually know. As far as coaches are concerned, that is not something that that I know of have been involved in as far as monitoring that.
Just to give you an example of why this is concerned, can I follow up with that? And then I'll just leave it alone, understanding we don't have any monitoring.
But I'm also going to go to
Oh.
Board Member Hymas after you finish, Carol.
Oh, sure. I just had an experience of dealing with a bullying coach in one school district. The district wasn't willing to do anything about it at the time, but a couple of months later, not even a couple of months later, he was fired, and then I was surprised to find out he was at another high school within 6 months. So I'm just bothered that we spend a lot of time writing rules like this, but it seems like coaches who have sometimes more intense relationships with students than teachers, we don't really have a good, strong monitoring plan, especially if they're not licensed, and increasingly, they're not licensed.
Thank you, Carol. Can I go ahead and go to Board Member Hymas, Angie, and then we'll come to you?
Sorry, thank you. I worked as an athletic director and worked with the UHSAA. They do have requirements in the UHSAA, and they have ways of tracking that as well. In fact, they'll reach out if you haven't fulfilled this, and there can be penalties that go along with that. I will say, though, that the UHSAA is not the only athletic program out there, right? Especially when you look at some of the smaller schools and charter schools. There's other areas in which you can become a coach. And so I felt like I could answer your question a little bit, that the UHSAA does have standards in place that can do this. And that's where my question kind of was with this is, does the UHSAA cover this line 38, 39? Would that cover any LEA training? Or can an LEA just adopt that? Like, I don't understand how this would look. Obviously, you wouldn't have a coach do it twice. I would hope not. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot of coaches, or people say it's not worth the bother. But we do also have educators that are trained on this regularly. Is that right? Yearly? I do know that too. And so I guess it's a small percentage, but it does, I don't know how this helps, kind of to Board Member Lear's point. Like, there are many safeguards, but there is a small percent that would not be, or maybe would not be held accountable to this. So I don't know the answer to that one.
Thank you, Board Member Hymas. Angie, did you have a response to those?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that also in R277409, which is the board rule we have that governs the High School Activities Association, also requires the High School Activities Association to essentially monitor and ensure that the schools that are their member schools are training their coaches. So my guess is either they are ensuring and overseeing that the schools are doing it, or they're doing it on behalf of the schools through Register My Coach. Was that what it was called? And I just wanted to remind you all that the High School Activities Association does receive some funds from the legislature through the State Board of Education, and they do have a requirement to annually report to the board. Sometimes that has been done verbally in a board meeting like this. Sometimes it's been just a written report. But that might be the opportunity for you as a board to request that information about what their relationship is with LEAs and how they're ensuring or overseeing that the training is happening for their coaches, and maybe see if there's any overlap or duplication. But I do know that schools do have a very close relationship with the High School Activities Association, and my guess is they've got a handle on it. And unfortunately, they're not here today, but they could probably answer some of these questions. But even if a school is not a member of the High School Activities Association, so there are 3 rules that essentially say this. The rule at question today, we've got R277613, which is our bullying prevention rule. That section requires LEAs to ensure that their coaches are trained. And then R277409, which requires the High School Activities Association to ensure that their schools are training coaches in bullying prevention. So I would, the way the language is stated in 409, it says that it says, "An association shall establish policies or rules that require the association or public school to annually train each coach or other individual who oversees or works with students as part of an interscholastic activity of a public school on the following." And it has child sexual abuse prevention, the prevention of bullying. It's got professional standards for educators, and that's it. So it's in there as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie. Board Member Hanson?
I just had a question, different lines, but looking at 23, 24, 25 was another portion that we added. I just wondered what the intent was by putting consistent with LEA policy at the end of that sentence. So it says coaches and designated school leaders are responsible for a student as long as the student remains on school grounds following a school-sponsored activity, but then we say consistent with LEA policy. Can the LEA have a policy that says that that's not the case?
Ben?
Well, I think the intention here was to remind LEAs of the importance of this while not at the same time taking all the authority from the LEA to determine what the responsibilities of their staff were to be. I mean, I think the intention was to make sure that staff monitor the situation and try and keep bad things from happening, but also recognizing that the LEA can set parameters on what their staff's responsibilities are and that kind of thing.
Chair Hanson?
Quick
I mean,
follow-up. So the answer
I
is-
keep calling you Chair because it's taking me so long to get to Chair Hanson. So, Board Member Hanson?
Don't give me a promotion here. So they can. The LEAs could set a policy that says that that's not the case.
So I would argue they can't do anything that would be contrary to what the board ruled. They don't have the authority. It's just like we don't have the authority to overrule statute. They wouldn't have authority to overrule or waive board rules. So it's kind of like how the legislature will at times set statute, but then they'll say, and then the board may provide supplemental requirements or may clarify things. I would think this is that same attempt to do the same thing from our level to the LEA level, is to give them that authority to clarify and provide additional information or clarification.
So subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule is the meaning that we're after?
Maybe it should say both, consistent with this rule and LEA policy.
Okay.
Or we could just strike consistent with the LEA policy.
Yeah, it was unclear to me when I read it. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear.
So, Board Member Hanson, are you making an amendment?
I would make a motion to amend to say, let's see, following a school-sponsored activity, consistent with, let's see, subject to LEA policy, consistent with this rule.
And
Would that be the right order, Angie, to say that?
with this rule and LEA policy, or you wanted to keep LEA policy or strike it and replace?
No, what I said was
sorry.
subject to LEA policy, if we think it's important for them to have a policy consistent with this rule.
Okay.
Okay, so the amendment, do I have it up here anywhere? The amendment to the motion is to add subject, yeah, but it's already there. Subject, it's already there, consistent with this rule. Is that what we're adding, just consistent with this rule?
No, subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion to, do I need a second? Sorry. Second, Board Member Cannon.
Yeah, second.
Thank you, Board
Board Member
Member.
Straight.
Thank you, Board Member Straight.
And if I could already,
Yeah, I don't think that's
Okay.
written the way that you're saying it. So, so subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule, where it says consistent now? Yeah, subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule.
Subject, and then consistent is, who's typing? Jeffrey typing?
Push Control plus too. I'm the blindest among you,
Everybody's
so. No offense.
Much harder to get close to the screen now that we're in person. LEA policy consistent with this rule.
Okay, so the underlined words are the amended words. which are subject to LEA policy and this rule. Those are the added words. Okay, Janet, are you good with that as your second? Board Member Hanson, did you want to speak to this now?
No, I think
Thank
enough's
you.
been said.
Any discussion to this amendment? Board Member Norton?
Yes, when this came through our board, I had questions about this very same thing as well. And when I asked for clarification on that, they said because the reason that the LEA policy was the portion of that was added into the policy is because some LEAs might have the principal be the one that is in charge of making sure that the students get out, or it could be left to a vice principal, or, so they realize they have to have somebody there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, that job does not necessarily have to be designated to the coach.
Okay, thank you. No, I think it stays consistent. Okay, so the amended motion before the board is that coaches and designated school leaders are responsible for a student as long as the student remains on school grounds following a school-sponsored activity, and the amended part is subject to LEA policy and, consistent with this rule. Any more discussion to the amendment? Carol, did you?
Short comment, yes. Oh, Brent, go ahead and let Brent speak.
Brent, do you have a comment?
Yes, I apologize. I got disconnected like 5 times in 10 minutes here. But so I know I'd seconded Board Member Hanson's. Did you vote on that already, or are we still on a new amendment?
No, we're still on the amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
I should speak, since I'm the representative on Utah High School Activities Association, to this. I believe overall it's an improvement. I appreciate the amendments, and I think they're friendly and good. The only thing I'd add from the perspective of a coach is it's always been, for the last 30 years that I have been involved, that you're responsible for those students until they got picked up. And sometimes there was phone calls that needed to be made and things like that. But that's always been the case in my LEA, which I appreciate the current amendment. Also, in regards to the bullying, I'm not sure if this is appropriate to our discussion right now. It's always, there are too many students who, even with the training, even with all that we do, bullying, who do not report it for multiple reasons. Coach, I've seen it personally. And I just really want to emphasize, and I don't know if we need some stronger language somewhere, that we need to have open communication where athletes do not feel intimidated, report improper behavior either by fellow athletes or by a coach, because I've seen too much of it over time. However, I'm not sure just a rule solves that. The LEAs and the schools themselves. And anyway, that's enough on that. I support the amendments as they've been presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Straight. Board Member Cannon?
Just a point of clarification, this talks about school grounds. Does school grounds mean not only the school grounds where the coach teaches, but the school grounds that they might be participating at an away school site? Does it encompass both of those scenarios?
We have the other language in the rule that says that other performance sites, they have similar obligations to
Thank you.
supervise.
I looked for a definition, didn't have a definition, so thanks for the clarification.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment to add subject to LEA policy and this rule. Any more discussion to that amendment?
Point of order, that and, subject to LEA policy, the and should be stricken. Subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule.
Thank you. We'll just accept that as a grammatical correction. Okay, so It's to add subject to LEA policy in this rule. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Board Member Straight, I'm assuming it's an aye since you said that before, but
It's showing aye.
showing aye. Thank you, we've got it. All right, so now the amended motion is, coaches and designated school leaders are responsible for a student as long as the student remains on school grounds following a school-sponsored activity, subject to LEA policy consistent with this rule. Any discussion to the amended motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Board Member Straight?
Is an aye?
An aye.
Okay. Thank you, that's unanimous, thank you. All right, Vice Chair Moss?
Okay, moving to truancy prevention. There has been an update. Draft 1 was in the backup. Draft 2 went in, so that's the one we'll address. And-
Wait a minute. Is there something new in draft 2? Angie, help me.
So I think what I was wondering is if the motion need to be that the board approve draft 1 as amended on final reading.
Yes,
Did you state that?
But what came out, what came out of committee?
Draft 1.
Okay, we need to do draft 1 and then we can amend that.
Right.
So we need to do the committee motion first. So go ahead.
So we will bring that one up. The committee moves that the board approve R277-607 truancy prevention, draft 1, on second and final reading.
So the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-607 truancy prevention, draft 1, on second and final reading. Board Member Moss, do you want to,
We turn that, sorry.
do you have an opposed, an proposed amendment?
We do. Draft 2 is, Draft 2 has now been posted. So should I move to amend to draft 2?
Yeah, well, you need to propose what the amendment is.
All right. The proposed amendment deletes one section of draft 1, which would be lines, hold on here, we're doing this on the fly, lines 28 and 29, the term with the words in subsection C, administrative penalties, including referral to a restorative justice program consistent with 53G-8-211, and I believe that's the only change to draft 1, correct?
57, 58.
45, okay, we're kind of doing this today. Ensure, delete the word "that" on line 49, so that it says, ensure between March 17, 2021 and June 1st, 2022, that no punitive action is taken against a student or student's parents for being truant. And I believe line 54, correct? We've removed the "and."
Yep. Mhm. Yes, and then we
Okay.
add 57 and 58.
The green lines are part of draft 1, and I should defer to Jeff here, but what you've got in backup now, green lines are draft 1, red lines are deletions in draft 2, and blue lines are additions of draft 2, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
So we add the word "and" in line 56, and then in lines 57, 58, we add subsection F as described in subsection 53G-8-211-2B. Ensure that the LEA does not refer a student to a court for being truant between March 17, 2021 and June 1st, 2022.
so those are the amendments on the table. Jeff, could you give us a little clarity as to the changes on that?
Yes, Jeff Van Holten, Director of Public Affairs for the State Board of Education. These were suggestions that came in from several stakeholders. Some LEAs were concerned, as well as other stakeholders, about framing the restorative justice program as a punitive action. So what we're doing here to make this amendment, just to be clear, nothing substantively changes from draft 1. What we did is we took the word punitive action as we've defined it, and we take out the reference to restorative justice, and we just move it down into the body of the rule in the section of what is required in terms of the policy that an LEA must have. And this just allows for the bill that passed, Senate Bill 219. We wanted to just restrict the punitive actions that that bill requires for the moratorium on truancy to just the things in the bill.
There was a lot of questions from LEAs about whether or not additional things are now not allowed or can be allowed. What is a punitive action? So we defined punitive action, but we also wanted to make sure that we didn't conflate punitive action with restorative justice. It feels very contradictory. So we found a new way to word it so that punitive action can mean what it means, and we still have the moratorium piece on restorative justice called out without defining it as punitive actions, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's helpful. Okay, so the amendment on the table is to, I know there's something before this one.
Would be to add line 28 and 20, or delete 28 and 29.
Okay, delete lines 28, 29, add, keep going, Jeff. On line 49 to take out the word that, on line 54 to take out the word and then on line 56 to do and as described in section 53G-8-2112B, ensure that the LEA does not refer a student to the court for being truant between March 17th, 2021 and June 1st, 2022. That's the amendment on the table. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion to this amendment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh. Any opposed? All right, so now the amended motion is that the committee moves, that the amended motion is that the board approve our 277607 Truancy Prevention Draft 2 on second and final reading. Any discussion to that amended motion?
Chair, I'll just add, Board Member Hart may or may not want to speak to this, but she brought up the idea of using restorative justice, or even during the pandemic, as a tool. And so that would not be a punitive action. So this, consistent with statute, prohibits the use of punitive actions during the specified period, but allows those things that might allow a cooperative intervention to help kids get back into class.
Thank you. Okay, so now the motion on the table, the amended motion on the table is that the committee moves that the board approve our 277607 Truancy Prevention Draft 2 on second and final reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, well, go ahead.
Could someone from the committee just remind us the part on lines 45 through 48 on ensuring valid excused absences for mental health are not used to circumvent free and appropriate public education requirements? Was there a discussion about how to provide FAPE if you can't get a child to school?
There was, yeah. I would defer to Member Hart.
Board Member Hart? Jeff, did you want?
Or Jeff.
I just wanted to quickly add, the reason why this is highlighted in green is you passed as a full board, 607, we added this in and you passed it out at the beginning of June. So that was the language that is now in the board rule that will be published, and now we're amending it again.
I withdraw my question and apparently voted ignorantly. So thank you.
Would you like an answer to your question, though? We'd still like an answer to that question, please.
Deputy Superintendent Patty Norman, thank you for the question. We had a meeting just recently with some of our LEAs and with some of our legislators. I'm not going to name the legislators at this time because it was a discussion meeting. At that time, it was brought up the date of 2022. The legislators that were in that meeting and some of the superintendents, as well as Lexi Cunningham, USSA Executive Director, questioned that 2022 piece of it. We're going to, so they wanted us, and we were going to have another meeting looking at what that date was, because really bringing it back to 2021, it would be most appropriate. The legislators on the call felt like they didn't understand what they were voting for, knowing that it was 2022 instead of 2021. They also didn't understand what that meant for LEAs when they were trying to look at truancy and getting kids to school. So they too wanted to be able to address that again.
All right. Okay, so the motion before the board is the board approve R277607, Truancy Prevention, Draft 1, on second and final reading.
As amended.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
As amended.
Any opposed?
As amended.
As amended.
Hold it, it's draft
2.
So restate the motion.
Okay, we'll start again. The motion before the board is the board approve R277607, Truancy Prevention, Draft 2, on second and final reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all vote. All in favor, say.
Aye.
I'm so
Board member
used to,
Creighton, aye.
I'm so used
Those
to
opposed.
saying, please, Mark.
You're doing fine.
Any opposed? Okay, good thing. Okay, we also need to go back and do a correction. Board Vice Chair Moss, we just need to go back to R277605. Yeah, so the motion that was before the board is that the board approve R277605, Draft 1, as amended on second and final reading. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for
Board
being
member Straight.
patient.
Thank you.
He's an aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, Vice Chair Moss?
Okay, last action item, SOEP. The committee moves that the board approve R277-726, State Online Education Program, Draft 2, on second and final reading.
The committee moves that the board approve R277726, Statewide Online Education Program, Draft 2, on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion?
Yes,
Board Member Lear?
well, we have a proposed change to it, perhaps, that might be appropriate before
So
opening to
let's do
discussion.
the change first. Is that
I'm always happy to listen to the
okay?
change first.
So you have an amendment?
We do. And let's see, maybe I can turn that one to Jeff to introduce and explain.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for these last-minute changes. One of the recommendations the committee made was to have this rule go to the SOEP work group before it came to you on this meeting today. So what you're seeing is the amendment that was recommended by that work group. They met on June 10th, so it was after the committee meeting. And their recommendation was simply that with the providers, LEA providers, or these new entities that can also be providers, that the cure period, if they are non-compliant, be explicitly listed rather than just saying an allotted timeline. So you'll see there at the bottom in section 9, it's a little difficult to see the purple, but we say following state fiscal year instead of allotted timeline. The idea here is we will give the provider one fiscal year to cure their non-compliance before they're removed from the program. Up above, you'll see this section of the rule, subsection 24 here, is the section of the rule that applies to the LEA providers, and we're just clarifying that that timeline applies to them as well. So all providers, whether they're an LEA provider or a different provider, will have one fiscal year to cure non-compliance, which was already stated in the rule, but the work group was concerned that it was not clear, so we just made these amendments to clarify that.
Thank you. So that's the amendment?
Correct. So move that we amend draft 1 to, make sure I get this right, to read in R277-726-12 sub 9, to read that if the certified online course provider fails to correct instances of noncompliance within the following state fiscal year, deleting the words allotted timeline, the certified online course provider shall be removed from the program. Also, amend, I'm sorry, I started from the bottom. Amend R277-726-8 sub 24 to read a provider is subject to A, the same approval and annual performance review as described for a certified online course provider in subsection R277-726-12 sub 1 through 10, adding the words including the cure period for noncompliance described in subsection R277-726-12 sub 9, and B, the applicable applications for a provider described in subsections R277-726-3 sub 1 A and B. There you go.
Okay, so for clarity, let's do clarity. So the first thing we're doing is adding a small a, and then we're adding, is the purple also new?
Purple's new, green is
Okay,
deleted.
including the cure period for a non-compliance described in subsection R277726-12, subsection 9. Adding a B, removing while utilizing. Adding following state fiscal year and removing allotted time.
Correct.
You need a second?
Is that your second?
Second.
Oh, I have to read it again.
Well, you gotta have
I
a
think we did it
second to have
twice,
it on
didn't
the
we?
table.
At least.
Twice should be
Keep it on
enough.
the table.
Okay, all right, so now it's on the table, and the amendment, do you want to speak to this?
Oh, I'm hearing no. Briefly, the idea is this is a new requirement, and so, as Jeff indicated, we had questions on the committee about how this was going to be handled in the event of a notice of noncompliance. So this gives more time for them to cure and get used to the new requirements in general, with the idea that it might be reviewed as we go along in that first year. So we liked the.
Any other questions
Yeah.
to the amendment? Okay, I do have a question. So Jeff, in essence, this is putting LEA providers and I don't know what to call them, vendor providers? Into the same, in the same category.
So these amendments would require all providers, LEA, higher ed, the new vendor providers, as you've stated, they would all have the same timeline to cure noncompliance. They would have one fiscal year to do so.
And does it list anywhere what things would be considered noncompliance? Is that completely done? Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. All right, so, okay, go ahead, Cindy.
But it's kind of not specific to the amendment. So I know we're just voting on the amendment today, but is this the thing that the SOEP group studied and came back, want to change to this rule, or are they still studying the whole rule and considering whatever changes they want to the rule?
Jeff?
This was, and Jennifer can correct me, or Dr. Thronson can correct me if I'm wrong, this was their review of the rule, knowing that it was open and before the board. This was the amendment to this portion of the rule. I'll defer to Dr. Thronson on the continuing work they do outside of this particular amendment.
Director Thronson in Teaching and Learning, and to address your question, the committee knew what the timing was in terms of the importance, and the committee had met once, so they're not ready to bring broader strokes to the board yet for consideration. We just focused on the time-sensitive quality. I would expect there may be things they will bring in the future, given our scope of work that we'll be generating. And we will come to the board in August to highlight what the committee wants to kind of review and talk about, just to give you an update.
Okay, any more questions to the amendment? Okay, the amendment on the table is to add an A, to add including the cure period for noncompliance described in subsection R277726-12 subsection 9, add a B, take out while utilizing, add following state fiscal year, and take out allotted timeline. Okay, any more discussion to this amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Board member Straight, okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, so now we have, this is the, are we going to be doing this? It's not a draft 2, right?
Draft 1 is amended.
Okay, all right, so the motion before the board is that the board approve our 277726 statewide online education program, draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Any discussion to this? Let me see who is here for. Board Member Lear.
Yeah, I have several questions and about this, if I can, do you want me to ask them one at a time?
I
or-
probably one at a time would be helpful.
Great.
Thank
So first of all, and so it might be to Dr. Comp, who directs this program, it might, whoever you tell me to ask them to. First of all, I want to know what these, I know this rule is, the changes are in reaction to legislation, so to some extent, we have no choice. Not happy about it, just let me say that out loud in this public meeting, but I know we have to amend the rule to be consistent. So what do these certified online providers look like? Do they, and I'll give you the kind of follow-up questions just so we can get them over with. Do they have to use the core curriculum? Do they, are they for-profit? What are these online, and how many of them are we having poised to manage?
Dr. Kant?
Yes, we're not sure how many will apply at this point in time.
Do you have a guess, 10, 25?
Right now, I think we've had interest from 5 or 6, and they vary very much. Everything from a private school to a large university-based provider. Yeah, I can't remember the.
Do they need to follow the core curriculum?
Oh, yes. That's what this application process does, is it places every single type of provider, even, well, including the Utah Public University providers on exactly the same standing. So our providers normally have to use Utah licensed teachers. They have to make sure any curriculum they're offering is consistent with the Utah core, that they're offering special education services, any other services required for specialized groups, secure testing, and all of the yearly training to go along with these things. They'll have to have a designated person to handle special ed and accommodations and all that, just like any other provider. They'll have to have systems in place that will integrate vertically with UTREX, so they will be on exactly the same standing with any other LEA in our program. We don't know if they'll be for-profit or nonprofit. It could be either.
And just 2 more questions. One is, so the LEAs are responsible to supervise these students taking these classes, just like they are responsible to supervise other students now in SOEP classes. Is that right?
Well, it depends. We have 3 categories of students in this program. The one is students enrolled in the public education system, so that if they enroll with one of these non-LEA providers, they will be monitored by their home LEA. But if you have a home or private school student, they won't be so monitored by their home LEA. But that's what USOE or USBE has been very careful to do in our application process, is to put in additional provisions to make it almost as if we are a supervising LEA, we are the SEA after all, above that provider, ensure everything that an LEA would be normally ensuring with, an LEA provider would normally be ushering with regard to all the students they're serving. So we will take on that role. That's part of the reason we have a fee for this service.
So I'm still not sure what the answer is. LEAs will not be supervising these specialized provider students because the SEA will be, because the providers are paying a fee to the USB. Is that right?
Well, we've
Just
got.
a yes or no, Cory.
Okay.
Not exactly, or?
Not
Sorry.
exactly, because you've got a division. You've got a division where you've got a public LEA supervising, and you've got the SEA supervising.
So LEAs are supposed to figure this out.
Carol, may I answer that?
Sure.
If they are in a private or homeschool setting.
I get the private
Okay,
homeschool. They're
but
not
if-
even near
but-
us, so
Yes, but if
don't
they're
care.
in those settings.
Right.
For example, if there is a vendor provider, they're not registered in any
Right,
LEA.
I get that. I get the
Okay.
homeschool, private school students. But what
Okay.
about the public school students who are taking courses from public providers and now private providers?
Good question.
Okay, so from that perspective, yes, that public LEA will be supervising those students just as they are in the program as it stands right now.
Okay. Helpful information, not fortunate for LEAs. I hope Jennifer's taking notes about talking to the SOEP committee about this. And just two more questions. So was staff added to supervise all of these?
Yes, we will have, it's gone from me to one additional staff, and now we'll be adding 2 additional staff. So yes, we will have the capacity to do everything that's connected with the on-take of these new providers and supervision and so forth.
And then one last question, if
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. And this is a question for Dr. Voorhees, if she's still listening. There's some language that's added to this about providing for special ed students. And I wrote down the line numbers, lines 4 to 37 and 4 through 448. I wanted to know if Dr. Voorhees felt comfortable that students with disabilities would be served adequately, given that language.
Dr. Voorhees?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Board Member Lear. Dr. Kant and I actually worked together on this, and she came to a special education directors meeting to talk to special education directors about this rule and about their responsibilities. And they were confused, to be honest, but she and I together answered a lot of questions and have provided a lot of technical assistance this past year to special education directors about their responsibilities, the primary LEA and the provider. And we do think that special education directors in primary LEAs, which is where the issue really is, because it's the LEA that's responsible, for the most part, understand their responsibility, but we do know that they also recognize that Dr. Kant and I are available to answer questions, and many of them have taken us up on it, and we have been providing technical assistance about this, and not just about the rule, but actually how to implement special education services in this kind of relationship. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Board Member Lear?
with a short follow-up, and that is, am I reading this correctly, though, that resident LEA, regardless of if these are private school students, homeschool students, or students served by these private providers, that the resident LEA will be responsible for preparing the IEP, is that right?
Correct. And let me add that our UPIPs, our compliance monitoring team, has also been working with Dr. Kant on this rule and on the monitoring of the implementation of the rule to really be able to support LEAs to make sure that they really do understand and make sure that this is what is happening.
And will they get paid for that? Will the LEAs get paid for those students that they will prepare those IEPs for?
So they wouldn't be receiving
any funding,
extra funding, but they're still claiming the students as being eligible for special education.
Oh, that makes me feel better. Okay, that helps. Thank you very much for that answer.
Thank you. Board Member Earl?
My question, and maybe you could have kind of answered it, has to do with how many LEAs, and then also, or I guess not LEAs, sorry. Let me get down to my line here. Certified online course providers, and then how do we know that money's either going to be enough, or if it's going to be too much, or we just, this year is a trial run and then we'll balance it out? I'm just wondering how we know that.
Dr. Kant?
That the estimate, that initial rate setting comes from my experience working with providers and working as well with various other components of USBE, IT, special ed, everyone else. So I think these are the costs that will, that we will see. But as Deborah Jacobson, emphasized, we will watch this year after year and reset those rates if we need to, and that as well as in these contracts that the providers can accept that or can expect that.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering how we got that number, so.
Thank you for being patient, Board Member Earl. Dr. Kant, I do have a question for you. For example, if there is a provider that's a private school and they are that certified online provider, do they understand though, however, because do they have the same restrictions that other providers have that you can't go through the statewide online education program for your own students?
Well, part of the process that we're setting up is exactly similar to what charter schools go through before they become a charter school. We're going to set up a whole training that they'll have to go through before they can ever submit that application. Because right now, I don't think they understand all these things. I had a contact from an experienced educator working with the charter school that took a look at the application and said, but none of this applies to us. So I know we need to do this training beforehand before they ever even turn in that, application.
So I just need to do a follow-up. So if Granite School District has an online program, they cannot run through the statewide online education program to service their own students. They have to service their students, and then they could do other students like in Jordan or whatever. So that's the one thing you're worried about training on? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's not the one thing.
But one of them.
That is
One of them.
one of the items, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see any more lights, so. What? Okay, so the motion before the board is to approve R 277726 statewide online education program, draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
Great.
You have 2 noes, Board Member Lear, Board Member Davis, and Board Member Straight. Thank you. Vice Chair Moss, does that conclude your report?
That concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am going to take a point of order here and take 3 minutes for a quick break.
Fast.
I get it. I'm like, I gotta put on a suit. I won't be able to button it. That's okay. You can ask those questions.
In our refrigerator. Okay,
Okay, let's reconnoiter. Oh, if only Scott was here. But it is gavel.
I just banged it. I don't like it, but
Okay, we're going, go ahead and start. Chair Lear? Thank you.
We have several items. The first one is in the Law and Licensing Committee, I'm saying. We have several items. The first one is item 6.2, Itinerous Early College High School Board Rule Waiver Renewal. Thanks to Michelle Buse for working so well with these waiver requests. The motion, we had a discussion about Itinerous that would like a waiver of its requirement for 180 school days, and they have more than enough hours. And then also, they want a waiver of the part of the arts and health PE requirement for their students, so that it more clearly matches the college requirements that are very similar to where, I shouldn't say that, where itinerant students mostly get those associate degrees or whatever they're called before they graduate. So that's the purpose. So the motion is that the board renew the waiver, and this is a renewal too, by the way, not a new request. Renew the waiver of certain requirements in R277-419 and R277-700 for Itinerous Early College High School as requested.
Hold on, Board Member Lair, sorry. Okay, the motion before the committee moves that the board renew the waiver of certain requirements in R277-419 and R277-700 for Itinerous Early College High School as requested. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Member Straits and I.
Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
Item 6.3 is a request for repeal from staff, R277-503, licensing routes. The committee moves that the board repeal R277-503, licensing routes on second and final reading. This is now in a different rule.
Thank you. The committee moves that the board repeal R277-503, licensing routes on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's
Item-
unanimous.
Item 6.4 is R277-930. This is a new rule, English Language Learner Software. There's funds that are being distributed, and this would provide the basis for that distribution. The committee moves that the board approve R277-930, English Language Learner Software Draft 2 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-930, English Language Learner Software, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Any discussion to this motion? Board Member Lear, I do have one question. Thank you. Is this a specific software, or is this out for bid? Does somebody?
I would remember that if it weren't so long ago.
I know.
So I would defer to, I think it's out for bid.
Thank you, Melanie.
The question is the English language learner software up for bid? The answer is each LEA gets to make their own choice.
Thank you. Simple. Thank you. Okay, so the motion, yes, Board Member Kenneth?
Yeah, I have a question. What is the source of money that's funding this, and how much funding are they getting?
There is 3 million legislative funding and a one-time additional 1.5 for this next school year.
Did that answer your question? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve R277-930, English Language Learner Software, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Member Straight? Member Straight, are you voting on this? I'm seeing nothing.
So, okay. Thank you. Board Member
Item
Lear?
6.5, this is some slight changes to R277-609, standards for LEA discipline plans and emergency safety interventions, asking for a continuation and this amendment. The amendments were changes in the sections of the code from bills during this last session of the legislature. So the committee moves that the board to continue and approve R277-609, standards for local education agency discipline plans and emergency safety interventions, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve and the board continue and approve R277-609, standards for local education agency discipline plans and emergency safety interventions, draft 1 on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm not seeing him.
One. Okay, go ahead.
And the last item is item 6.6. This is a discussion, if you recall, Deputy Superintendent Stallings talking about the sunset provisions that would come before the board. And this is one of those. It was a committee discussion of the, I want to say this accurately, State Instructional Materials Commission that would perhaps be sunsetted if not supported by the board. And the discussion was helpful and interesting, and the committee supported maintaining this committee. So the committee moves that the board recommend the legislature maintain the State Instructional Materials Commission in Utah Code and not allow the commission to sunset.
So the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board recommend the legislature maintain the State Instructional Materials Commission in Utah Code and not allow the commission to sunset. Any discussion to that motion? Board Member Earl, sorry.
Hi. The question I have is, I think as we are moving more from, and I know we've updated what instructional materials are in the last, I don't know if it was this legislative session or was it 2 back? I guess, are we capturing the scope of instructional materials? In other words, as we move more towards online, I guess I'm just asking that question. Are we able, is this group able to address those continuing technology changes that come up?
Thank you. Is there someone who, Dr. Thronson, is that you? Oh, there's Alan.
Okay.
Hello. Mr. Griffin, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan Griffin, Curriculum Content Specialist at State Board of Education. Yes, we not only updated the definition of instructional materials to include digital materials and online materials, we are reviewing online materials as they come, including open educational resources. So yes, we are very concerned about making sure that we get a good review of all the materials that are available for classrooms.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Earl. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Okay, Board Member Hanson?
I think Board Member Lear was ahead of me.
She's
was
just
she?
on.
No, I'm just,
She's just on.
that's so nice of you, Scott.
She's presenting.
Sorry. I just wondered, so recommendations from the State Instructional Materials Commission, if I understand it correctly, are optional for the LEAs. Is that correct?
Mr. Griffin, did you hear that question?
Yes, what we do is we recommend instructional materials. We do not mandate. So school districts are at their own choice to choose to use the recommendations or to choose those they'd like to use on their own.
Just to follow up then, do we have a feel for how often those recommendations are followed? And how often the LEAs choose to go on their own? I mean, how effective is this committee or commission?
Mr. Griffin?
I don't have any good data on how many districts are using the materials, but I don't have any reason to believe that people are using any that are not on our list. All the feedback I get from districts is very positive about using the recommendations we provide.
So just anecdotally, I guess, we think it's pretty widely adopted, the recommendations.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hanson. Any other questions? Okay, so the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board recommend the legislature maintain the State Instructional Materials Commission in Utah Code and not allow the commission to sunset. See no more lights. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, say no. And he's a yes.
Vice Chair, that completes our report.
Thank you, Chair Lear. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we're on to number 7, a Standard Assessment Committee. Chair Hanson. Break. Oh, okay, so we're going to move that. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, then I will turn do you want me to just go into executive session, Chair? Okay, I'll turn the helm back over to Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Belknap. Moving on to our agenda. I'm seeking a motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the character, professional competence, and physical or mental health of individuals, and discussion regarding deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
So moved, Davis.
Second, Belknap.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Board Member Booth?
Aye.
Board Member Hart? Aye. Member Hanson? Aye. Member Hymas? Aye. Member Earl? Aye. Member Hutchings, I gotta get the ings in there, I'm used to good friends without the G. That's an aye. Member Norton? Aye. Member Moss? Aye. Member Lear? Yes. Member Cannon? Aye. Member Klein? Aye. Vice Chair Davis?
Aye.
Vice Chair Belknap?
Yes.
And Mark Huntsman's a yes. And Board Member Straight will be saying goodbye to you because we're not doing, we don't have the ability here to do it properly to have you come into our executive session. So at this time, we want to clear the room with the exception of staff and our AEGs. So now we're going to go to the dance of clearing the room and putting signs on our doors, and we'll dive into this.
Eric is that man, right?
Gotta. Do we have hang on one sec. Sybil, are you ready? Can I seek a motion? Yes. Seeking a motion to come out of executive session. Second, Board Member Klein. Motion. Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we're out of executive session. Okay, Board Member Norton? Yes. Is your mic on or off? Educator licenses, are you?
Ready? Yes. I move that I move that we accept the board's, UPAC's recommendation on the following cases. In case number 19-1645,
We can do one at a time, or you can do a
Do you wanna
full
do
motion and
consent?
go
Let's
through
do
all of
consent.
them, and then
Yeah.
somebody can divide.
I move that we accept UPAC's consent calendar.
No, we don't have one. You can go,
This is
let me help you with
way
it.
too late right now.
I can just,
I had it right here on
Okay.
my computer.
hey, let me do this.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
seeking a motion to accept UPAC's recommendations on cases 19-1645, case
You want me to take it?
19-1668, case number 19-1706, case number 19-1720, case number 20-1743, case number 20-1760, case number 20-1767, case number 20-1768, case number 20-1776, case number 20-1784, case number 20-1785.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. But it's not on all of them.
You want to, you didn't want to divide?
Well, then I messed up because
Okay. All right,
I'm just being no.
all right. Motion carries.
Okay. Ready for the next one? I am ready for this one. Sorry.
Okay, there isn't a consent calendar, so
No.
this is,
This is appointments.
okay. Oh, and I hope I get this right. Okay. I'm nervous.
No, I've got it.
Okay, I know you've got it, but I've
Okay.
got to get it.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay. I move that the board appoint Belinda Talania to the Utah Instructional Materials Commission representing secondary principals for a 4-year term.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, the motion before the board is the board appoints Belinda Tolania to the Utah Instructional Materials Commission as a secondary principal representative for a 4-year term. Any discussion to the motion? Didn't see any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. I move that the board appoint Steve Phelps and Sarah Brady as in their second terms, and Kristen Mansell, Heidi Robinson, and Michelle Beck to their first term, to the Utah Special Education Advisory Panel representing individuals with disabilities and/or parents of students with disabilities for a 3-year term.
Second? Want to pick one? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion to the motion. The motion before the board is the board appoints Steve Phelps and Sarah Brady to second terms, and Kristen Mansell, Heidi Robinson, Michelle Beck to first term to the Utah Special Education Advisory Panel representing individuals with disabilities and/or parents of students with disabilities for 3-year terms. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. I move that the board appoint the following individuals to the USDB Advisory Council for 2-year terms. John Clements and Annalee Hathaway to their second term.
Hold on. No, hold on. Hang on one sec. I think
Are we-
what's next is access.
And I'm
The
not
other's on a-
access.
There's no motion on those.
Okay.
We're good. All right. Got it. Thank you. Great job. Vice Chair Davis.
I move that the board appoints the following individuals to the Advisory Committee on Equity of Educational Services for Students Access for 2-year terms. Klaustina Mahone Reynolds, second term as a representative of Black Americans. Dina Kohler and Susie Estrada, second terms as representatives of Hispanic Latino Americans. Fatai Tuafua, second term as a representative of Pacific Islander Americans. Donnell Pons and Mindy Layton, second terms, and Kimberly Reed and Bora Lee, first terms as at-large representatives with expertise or experience serving students who are at risk for underachievement for terms determined by Access leadership.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Discussion to the motion? The motion before the board is that the board appoints the following individuals to the Advisory Committee on Equity of Educational Services for Students for 2-year terms. Claudia Mahone Reynolds.
Klaustina.
What is it?
Klaustina.
Oh, okay. Klaustina Mahone Reynolds, second term as a representative of Black Americans. Dinah Collier and Susan Estrada, second terms as representatives of Hispanic Latino Americans.
Susie, it's okay. Close enough.
Patea, did I get it? Somebody help me.
Fatai Tuifua.
Pattaya. Tafua.
Tuifua.
Got it. Second term as a representative of Pacific Islander Americans. Donnell Pons and Mindy Layton, second terms, and Kimberly Reed and Bora Lee, first terms as at-large representative with expertise of experience serving students who are at risk for underachievement for terms determined by Access leadership. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with 1 no. Do you have the no? Coming out.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Vice Chair, let me.
Oh, sorry.
let me know. Vice Chair Belknap.
I'm doing the motion, right? Yeah. Okay. I make a motion that the board renews the appointment of the USDB Superintendent Joe Coleman for a 2-year term.
We have a second? Second. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, the motion before the board is that the board renews the appointment of the USDB Superintendent Joe Coleman for a 2-year term. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. I've checked all the boxes. We are to agenda item number 10.
Adjournment at 5:30.
Thank you for your service and your good work today. Looking forward to seeing you in August. What's that?
Next week, hearing. We
I
have a
mean,
hearing.
for board, but we have our hearing, yeah, for our next board meeting. And there is a hearing next week. Thank you again for your service. This meeting is adjourned.
What?